Good evening and welcome to Question Time on Model News Network. My name is Jay Winterbourne and I am the Independent's political correspondent, or so they tell me. Joining me tonight for the Conservatives, we have nobody because the person who was meant to be appearing with the Conservative has dropped out at the last minute, so isn't that fun? But I do have with me Business Secretary and Labour Party rising star Cavan Loken joining me. We also have Home Secretary and former Conservative high flyer model Willem joining us. Also we have LP UK Home Affairs spokesperson and Deputy Leader 3 Commas Club. Solidarity MLA and Party Leader Motel Blinds. Former Classical Liberal leader turned Green Party policy advisor Twisted Nuke, and the former Labour frontbencher for the Progressive Party UK, some British dude. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Our first and we're live from Ipswich, just because apparently that's a thing Question Time does. So, first question is regarding the Brexit documents palaver. We've all heard the allegations levelled by the Prime Minister that the Conservative Party deliberately withheld documents from the new government. My question is, if the allegations do turn out to be true, should there be an investigation? And I'm going to throw that question to 3 Commas Club.
Obviously, we don't know to the full extent circumstances surrounding the Brexit documents, and it's my opinion that if indeed the allegations are proven true, it's up to the Prime Minister and ultimately the Liberal Democrat government to decide. There should be an investigation, but if it is proven true, I would be in favor of looking to see what exactly happened to determine the truth of things.
Okay, since you are in the government, I'm going to ask Willem, what's your view on this?
Well, we do want to have a great working relationship with the Conservatives, and I am sure that they will hand them over as soon as possible. And if they don't, then well, yes, I would support a investigation. But I'm very optimistic and I'm always positive, so I think that everything will be fine.
Everything will be fine. Twisted Nuke, what's your view on this?
Well, I think it's rather astonishing. I mean, I think it's absolutely scandalous. You know, the Conservatives and the Libertarians swear blind that they were very, very busy negotiating with the European Union, their term in government. But it's interesting how there's no evidence of that. They didn't provide any briefings to Parliament. The documents have mysteriously gone missing. And I find it very interesting that we have a Libertarian Party member so they don't know the full extent. I mean, you were in government with these people. I mean, I would hope that you were kept in the loop. Perhaps, the Conservatives threw you through a blinder as well. But I don't actually know who was the diabolical that they've run off with the documents. Give the government the documents. I think this has been I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to get my point across. But I think this has been a calculated move by the Conservatives. I think this isn't an accident. I think what they wanted was to leave government, to try and sabotage the talks as much as they could by bringing all the documentation with them, to put the government in an impossible position so that we end up with a no deal in January, and in the next election they can gain some seats. I think this has been a very disingenuous move by the Conservatives to tarnish the reputation of this government. And, I'm not a member of the government, but I think it's bullshit.
I think you've made your point. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I would just like to step in here.
And if I may, because I've got a question for you, 3 Commas Club, because we did see before we actually had these allegations that the documents were being withheld, we did see the Libertarians come out with a motion, a Brexit integrity motion or something along those lines, against the government's decision to seek an extension to the transition period. If the Libertarian Party had known beforehand that the documents were being withheld or alleged to have been withheld, would you still have submitted that motion?
I mean, so first, before I answer that question, I'd just like to correct the record from what Nuke said. Okay, trying to depict the LPK as some sneaky, clever politically. We did not know the documents were being withheld. We don't have access to those documents, and it shouldn't be a surprise because it was the Tories who were taking the lead on the negotiations. Those negotiations happened. we aren't in possession of those documents. If we were certainly hand them over, and you can look at our party statement to back that up. And now, specifically with the question you're asking me about if we would have submitted the extension if we knew the documents weren't being withheld, obviously that would have changed things. But ultimately, to my opinion, we should not be seeking an extension because we should be getting Brexit done and not trying to delay and dither it again. And frankly, appealing to me that the government doesn't want to get Brexit done. They're looking for a way out of it.
And I should,
In my opinion,
I should
before
clarify.
documents were withheld.
I should clarify at this moment that the Conservative Party has been contacted for comment by various outlets at various different opportunities for comment on this issue, and they've not responded to any inquiry by anyone. So there we are. Motel Blinds, your party has come out very much in support of the Labour Party throughout this whole debacle. What do you think the way forward should be for the government at this moment?
I think the way forward is obvious, is it not? Just fucking get the documents and get it done.
I mean, for the government, what do you think the government should do, though? Do you think the government needs to ramp up the pressure or launch an investigation or something? What do you want to say?
Investigation?
I don't know. Well, as a party that
Like
could be
the
very
police or what?
Well, as a party that could be very integral to the government implementing its program, you hold, what is it, 5 seats in the House of Commons? 4 seats in the House of Commons. So, what do you want the government to do as a result of the situation?
Well, I don't think there's any big step needs to be taken. I'm pretty sure the Tories will act in good faith and hand them over eventually. If they don't, there's channels you go down. It's really quite simple. You get the documents and you get it done, or you don't get the documents, you do something about it, then get it done. Like, it's not some sort of crazy question, you know?
Is the government right to sort an extension?
Yes, definitely. If they don't have the documents to do it, how can they do it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just common sense. When does the deadline is the 31st December, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How would they get Brexit done with no documents and pretty much just a month? That's just ridiculous.
Okay, I think we're going to move on to something else now. We're going to move to the drug reform bill. What are the panel's thoughts on the drug reform bill? And I'm going to start with someone who we've not really heard from at all tonight, and ask some British dude. Have you had a chance to look at the drug reform bill, and do you have any thoughts on it? Hello? Can we hear you? I don't think...
I really like that.
Oh, here he is. We've heard him.
Hello. I have not really read the drug reform bill all that much. Perfect honest, I've tried to stay away from the argument around it. But from what I gathered, it's proving not all too popular with some members. I'm not entirely.
If I can help you understand, the aim of the bill is to restrict the usage of hard drugs to drug consumption rooms, and basically, if the bill passes, people won't be allowed to take consume hard drugs in their own homes. And the bill was submitted with the express aim of trying to reduce domestic violence in homes as a result of drug consumption.
I'm not entirely sure about that. I don't think the government should be should have the responsibility of restricting what people do inside their own homes. I think
this isn't a government bill. This is a Conservative bill.
Even then, I don't think the government should have the job, or from the Conservatives saying, the government shouldn't have the responsibility of governing what people do inside their own home. As soon as you pass the rest of your home, what goes in there should, as long as it's within reason, you're not killing people inside your own home. As long as if you want to take drugs, you should be able to take drugs inside your own home. That's my position on it.
Model William, your party was a sponsor to the bill, and has since withdrawn its support. Could you give us any insight into that decision?
Well, the decision was made fairly recently after we ended up in government, we are very much in favor of a liberal stance on the use of drugs, and therefore it didn't completely cover what we wanted it to do at this very moment. So we decided to withdraw our sponsorship of the bill in order to make sure that we will be able to create our own legislation to tackle the domestic abuse through hard drugs, but in a different way that is more liberal.
And Calvin, we've not really heard from you. What's your view on the drug reform bill? And the Labour Party was very, very firm in coming out against it. What do you have your own view on this? Does it differ from the Labour Party position?
I think it would be important to say that I don't particularly have my own strict and strong opinions on drug use or on the bill itself. However, having spoken to Secretary of State for Health, he's voiced his very clear opposition to the bill, specifically in regards to it taking us back to pre-2015 rules, which I do disagree with. I think that we need to look into progressive drug policies. We need to make sure that drug users are not being criminalised, because it's been shown with the war on drugs that is just going to exacerbate societal problems if we decide to criminalise it. So most of my opinion has to come from people who have far greater understanding as to the implications legally and legislatively from it. So going by that, specifically the Secretary of State for Health, I would say that I agree with the party in disagreeing with the bill, out of the risk of it dragging us back to the war on drugs once more.
But aren't the aims of the bill somewhat noble in trying to reduce domestic violence as a result of drug use? Does anyone have a comment on that?
Just on
anyone
that,
at all, not just Calvin.
Yeah,
I'm aware.
I was just going to say on that, it's yeah, you can have noble intentions, but do it wrong. There's the famous saying of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Absolutely, it's a noble intention to want to reduce domestic violence, but it doesn't work if it comes at the sacrifice of exacerbating other problems.
Who wanted to come in on that?
May I?
Yes, of course.
I mean, the whole point we took in 2015 when we brought in the original Drugs Reform Act was very simple. We saw the Portuguese model, we saw that it worked, and frankly, we saw that the state continually trying to control every aspect of drug policy wasn't working. Now, this bill, it has good intentions, but it hasn't really thought it through. I mean, it's pretty clear it's not going to pass. You can't find anyone who will publicly say they support it anymore except Coalition. And, how many MPs do they have?
None.
So, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. I wasn't sure. I mean, I get the reasoning, but if we compare it to other drugs, compare, for example, it to cigarettes, then the approach we have is we license tobacconists, but we don't restrict where people can use tobacco. And the whole point of the Portuguese model was to emulate that approach. So I think that, frankly, the authors should withdraw the bill, think again, and try and see if there's any improvements they can make on a cross-party basis.
So what I'm getting
clearly,
from
it's not going to pass.
So what I'm getting from the panel is that you're all basically against banning hard drug use in any circumstance.
Everyone is.
As a means of harm reduction, though, do we think it's time for the government or anyone to legislate for free addiction treatment?
Yes.
It's part of the NHS.
It isn't.
Is it not?
No.
Oh, I've completely misunderstood that. In that case, yes, we should.
Fair enough.
I think that the health secretary might have to look on that one.
Probably. So turning now to the upcoming devolution elections, I was going to ask Shane this question, but he's disappeared, it would appear. I don't know why, but there we are.
Typical unreliable left. Tut, tut, tut.
So I'm going to have to skip over that, my first question, which is a shame. But the prominent rise of the Free Shetland Party has shown an appetite for hyper-local devolution. Is this something that makes sense for the UK? And this question comes from the clanger sitting in the front of the audience.
Personally, I don't think so.
Elaborate on that.
Well, we this is of course in Scotland, and the Shetlands, I think, are fairly small to have their own kind of um, extra devolved um, um, parliament issues, stuff like that. I think that they have already got a great MSP, a great MP who can fight for their rights and for their opinions, and I think that that is going all right and that is going well. So I don't really see the urgency in getting a free Shetland or anything like that.
But would the wouldn't the Welsh Justice referendum that we've just had that passed by a somewhat of a pretty clear mandate? Does that not show that there is a very clear appetite for more devolution rather than less?
No, I don't think so, because I think that the Welsh Justice and Policing Devolution referendum was something entirely different. The referendum made sure that Wales is on the same level as Northern Ireland and Scotland are when it comes to justice and policing, and that they are now equals. And I don't really see the need to have those kind of things just for Shetland, for the Shetland Islands.
May I come in?
Yes, Twisted.
I would vehemently disagree with the reasoning that Willem has put across. I don't think it's quite as nuanced as Willem puts it across with the Welsh Justice point. There is an appetite in this country for things to be run locally. And I would say to the unionists in the room, think carefully about how you want to play your cards. For the time being, mostly due to the efforts of the classical liberals and then the conservatives, nationalism in Scotland is on the back foot, and it is generally that trend across the UK. Do you want it to stay that way? Because fundamentally, there are some deep flaws in the way that power is distributed in our union. And if you're interested in keeping it going, or even just having it functional in the meantime, we need to really rethink how we have power. Too much power is vested in Westminster. English devolution has been a botch and frankly a failure. And we've seen that all we get is the devolved assembly squabbling with Westminster over powers. So I think this taps into a deeper problem that we need to have a serious rethink about how we want to distribute powers in our country if we want to make our country viable in the long term. And I think we have to start from the principle that we should devolve powers as close to the people who exercise them as possible. And with the Shetlands, there's an identity to base that on.
Eloquent as ever,
If
Twisted.
I can step in here real
yes,
quick.
I was going to ask.
I
was going to ask you. I was going to ask you to come in on that. 3 commas.
Perfect. Yeah. First, I'd like to note, Twisted talking about how the classical liberals, conservatives have been downplaying nationalism. Well, he's the former leader of the classical liberals, so it's kind of funny to hear him say, "Oh yes, the classical liberals conspired to creep down nationalism."
No, I'm actually a new canon persona, but go on.
Okay, sorry.
Canonically, it's my dead parent who died in a Djibouti independence rally.
So I think we need to launch a full investigation into the guy's background. But
it was a terrible tragedy.
She's very upset about it.
Oh, heartbroken.
Okay. Obviously. I think there's a clear distinction between legitimate calls for more devolution and greater extent of power to local authorities than movements like Free Shetland, which we have seen gather 0 votes so far, and frankly seems more of a joke to me with their publicity stunts to buy the Chagos Islands and other stuff. So I think we can't just take every person who claims to represent some place seriously when they haven't won any seats or won any votes for that matter as well.
What kind of libertarian argues against localism? This should be well within your purview because it's about taking power away from.
Because your party was in favour of justice devolution. 3 commas.
Personally?
Well, your party was in favour of it. Are you saying that you disagree with that particular party line?
No. What I'm saying is, no, I think when there's genuine calls for devolution, that should be accepted and looked into. But we can't take, for example, the Free Shetland movement seriously when they're publicity stunts, like trying to buy the Chagos Islands, and they have won 0 votes. I don't see a mandate for public
Hello?
support.
Okay,
that
so
movement. Where's the mandate?
Yeah.
Can someone hear me?
yeah, we have just been joined by Chain Chomsky. They are subbing in for the departed Solidarity leader, Motel
Yes,
Blinds.
I am indeed
Rest
a
in
sub,
peace.
but this chat
So-
isn't canon, so.
So we're just talking about devolution, Chain Chomsky. Thank you
It's
for
a shame
sneaking
that
your way.
Shane Hedison is attack dog in.
Yes, thank you for sneaking your way
Woof,
into
woof,
the.
commas.
Oh,
Can,
shut up,
can we
okay.
please keep it
Call me a
civil?
dog, you
Otherwise, I
dirty,
will
dirty
start
boy.
turning off people's mics. Thank you very much indeed. We are just talking about devolution. Mr. Chomsky, I do have a question for you regarding your party and its policies and devolution. Your party, Solidarity, they are running in the devolved elections as the Scottish National Party, the Social Democratic and Labour Party, and Plaid Cymru. Those are three parties that are broadly in favour of breaking up the United Kingdom. So this is a question this is a question that I've had from from one of our audience here in lovely Ipswich, who are worried that if they vote for Solidarity, how can they trust Solidarity as a party to run the country they want to break up?
Oh, that's pretty simple. It's because we want England to do well. I mean, yeah, we want to break up the UK into 4 successful, independent countries. If you vote for us in England, you will ultimately be getting a country that's going to invest in England public services, invest in England education, improve English healthcare, and that's the same thing we would do in Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland.
Yeah, we don't have to do that. You don't have to break up the UK to do that. You
Well,
can
you
just
have to break up the UK
we,
to give... Okay, you go, buddy.
we already have we already have devolved assemblies. They have the powers to do exactly what you just said.
Well, I mean,
in their
I had to
respective
spend
countries.
7 months fighting to give one of those devolved assemblies equal powers, so it's not as if that's a given.
And you won. The system is working. It's clearly reformable.
And I supported that, but we don't need 4 separate countries. I've made it clear. I've made it clear before, and I've cleared again. This country is too. This island is too small for 2 countries. It is suitable for 2 countries, suitable for 3 countries, suitable for 4, 5, 6, 7 countries. However you
There are
want to split it
66
up.
million people here. We're one of the largest countries in Western Europe.
Well, okay, so I think
Yes, we're a big country on a small island. Imagine.
But if I may,
Iceland.
so would it not then? I mean, if we're too small of an island for if we're a big country for a small island, would not a fair compromise then be shifting towards a federal system with more powers to devolve to places like Northern Ireland and Wales and Scotland, and then England, I don't know, split up into regions or something?
I'm perfectly okay with that. If that's the compromise we have to come to, that's the compromise we'll have to come to.
So there's a few things. So first, I would actually argue that in terms of splitting things up, Irish republicanism is actually the more consolidated solution, because whatever solution we get to Brexit is just going to add more barriers between the Republic and Northern Ireland.
You
and
say
more
that, but
barriers
isn't the current ascendancy of Alliance and formerly Labour Party of Northern Ireland, the ascendancy of them in public support in Northern Ireland show that people are tired of sectarian, unionist, nationalist politics and
their
are
leaders
looking.
are nationalists. I mean, their leaders are nationalists, and SDLP is going up in the polls too.
BNG's
So, no,
not
I
a
wouldn't say
nationalist.
so.
Bernard de Gamer isn't a nationalist.
He's a self-described national. I was his deputy leader, buddy. Like, I know what I'm telling you.
This attitude is the problem in Northern Ireland, though. This is the reason that we still have problems with sectarianism. Northern Ireland has to move on. You can't live forever in the shadow of the Troubles and be a functional place. You know,
The problem,
it's up
the
to the
problem
people of
with
Northern
not
Ireland to
being
decide
able
what
to
they
Not
want.
move
fair.
on-
need
Is
to
it not
move on.
fair that people in Northern Ireland who are worried about the implications of Brexit want a chance, you know, as time goes on, things are only going to get more uncertain for the people of Northern Ireland. So would it not be fair for them to want to rejoin with their old comrades in the
Yeah,
south?
my point, Twisted, is that there was a way to move on. It was called the open borders under the Good Friday Agreement. That is going to face fundamental challenges due to Brexit.
No, a deal's been
so
done.
it's impossible to move on. The deal has not
Yes,
been
it
done.
has.
Willem,
Read the
Willem,
report.
what's your view?
The Northern Ireland Protocol's a
I'm
mess.
sorry,
It is
this
the
is the
best
same
possible deal.
attitude that's holding us back. People don't want to move on.
Can I bring
and we have
Willem
the
on
left
this?
saying,
Can I
"We will
can I
never
bring
move
Willem in?
on."
He's been a bit quiet. Hello, what's your view on all of this, on Northern Ireland and devolution and Brexit?
all, my views on Brexit are very clear that I'd like to see us close to the European Union. And I think that the rest of the Liberal Democrats and Labour, of course, supports that idea. When it comes to Northern Ireland, I think that it shows a lot that the Alliance Party, who designate as an other party, I don't really think that we should have a border. I don't think that they should rejoin the Republic of Ireland. I think that the current system is working, and we shouldn't really touch that and have all of the
Moving,
effects
okay,
and
so
everything else that might even touching that might bring back everything that we have fought for so very hard. I don't think that we should touch it right now.
moving away from Northern Ireland and towards Scotland. What we saw a few days ago now, I think, when the Whip, the Labour Party, announced that it was going to be voting in favour of the Scottish Conservative budget, and then the leader of the Labour Party saying that that wasn't going to happen. And the Conservative Party are currently ascendant in the polls in Scotland. They've got like 51% of the vote or something, which is, ironic given their nationwide slump elsewhere. What is the future of politics in Scotland where the Conservatives are doing so well and the question of nationalism is, if anything, dead at the moment? What is the future? Well, I mean, what's the future of Labour in... Well, first of all, what's the future of Labour in Scotland, Calvin Loken?
The future.
Because you can't deny that Labour are in an impossibly horrific position in Scotland heading into these devolved elections.
I mean, I don't do mincing words, and yeah, they're in a fundamentally quite bad position. We're into the third leader in a very short period of time. Yeah, Scottish Labour is in a difficult boat, as was Labour nationally following General Election 14. You can't look at what has happened and say, well, they're in a really difficult position. How are they going to recover? Because fundamentally, Labour can recover.
You've cut out.
Especially with
there you are.
the bit of a trouble regarding whips in Scotland. However, there is a route back, and absolutely Scottish Labour just needs to begin to focus on the issues that are core to Scotland that they can take from a Labour perspective.
And if nationalism in Scotland is as dead as it appears to be, Mr. Chomsky, what is the way forward for your party regarding going into this next election?
Well, I don't think it's dead. I think it's definitely dormant, but I think ultimately there's room for fight back, because at the end of the day, if you support nationalism or not, if you vote for Labour, you're voting for Nicola Murray at the end of season 4, episode 4 of The Thick of It, just flailing around, agreeing with half of the Conservative Party's policies, then flipping on it. I mean, really, the phrase "from bean to cup" really was written for Scottish Labour. They whip for a budget, abstain on it, then flip. I wrote a bill promoting judicial diversity. They flip, then they support a bill moving away from it. I mean, if I'm an elector, I can't tell the difference between Scottish Labour on any given day. So I think, if anything, even if every single Scottish person on the left hated nationalism, they'd be forced to vote for the SNP, because at least we know what we're doing. So I think there is a path forward for Scottish nationalism, and it's ironically based on competence, which is something that I'll admit, in the last independence referendum, I think the Unionists won the competence question, but at this point, there is zero doubt that the nationalist side has a more coherent message than Labour.
Almost makes one miss the Scottish Social Democrats. Moving on to foreign policy, I think it's time to move away from devolved. We've struggled through this topic for too long. So this question comes from the man in the middle of the audience who says, "Say what you will about Donald Trump, but the UK and the US did enjoy a closer relationship during his presidency. What does the election of Joe Biden mean for the future of UK-US relations?" And I'm going to throw this question to the man with the most recent foreign policy experience. It's former Foreign Secretary Model Willem.
Yay. I think that things can only improve.
things can improve.
personally,
Here.
Yeah.
we were able to work with President Trump. I did it myself on the Iran deal a couple of months ago, but it was not as smooth as it could possibly have been, to put it mildly. No, I think that things can only get better in terms of the UK-US relationship, and I think that we have a lot in common with Joe Biden, more than we have with President Trump.
3 commas. What's your view?
I definitely agree with William. Things can only get better. Though I will say, I'm not sure how much of a success the Iran deal was. I do believe there was a vote of no confidence based on that deal. I'm not sure, but you can look at the record.
At least we got it fixed after you pulled us out.
Okay.
That
That was a few months ago now. Let's move on.
But yeah, continuing on, I think, yes, we need to find areas to work together with the United States, and that includes defending and preserving their base in places like the Chagos Islands and not seeking to attack the United States, and which I think will only seek to make things worse, in my opinion.
Can I hop in?
No.
Calvin wanted to come in.
Oh, fair enough.
I mean, we have 2 quite good points to touch on. First of all, regarding Donald Trump's close relationship with the previous government of the United Kingdom, which I think, quite simply, I will say maybe speaks more to the state of our previous government, to which they could find such good working ground with a complete...
Careful now. Tread
words.
lightly.
However, absolutely, the transition from Donald Trump to Joe Biden has been tumultuous and clearly will end up being very tumultuous if he's going to refuse to concede. However, it is absolutely possible for the British government to continue to work very productively with our longtime American allies, and also to be able to work with our American allies in order to deal with issues that are raised in foreign policy, such as the Chagos Islands, which seems to become such a sticking point for today's politics that it's even reached the point of what was described in a news article, which I will not speak to whether or not I completely agree to it, but a motion being put forward, which one news article suggested would be the opposition potentially forcing Britain's hand into a war in the case of the islands being handed over, and then this motion or bill coming into effect.
I'm curious to hear what kind of rags the Secretary of State for Business is reading, because from my reading of the bill, there is
Not
nothing
the
in there that
Spectator.
calls for the country to go to war. I happen to not read the Spectator.
Is it The Independent by any chance?
I do love a good war.
As someone who personally stuffed illegal ballots in Georgia for Joe Biden, I can only see
We found them.
optimistic future ahead for the president. Yeah.
Twisted Nuke, you had something to say?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'm surprised that Willem isn't a little more careful with their words surrounding the American government. I'm not sure it's becoming of a government minister to be quite so forthright, but we are where we are. I'm quite glad to see a return to normality, because Trump has been a 4-year experiment in how to take away 40 years of progress for the US. They nearly collapsed the Iran deal, which, free commerce can dispute all you like, but if the alternative is perhaps a flawed deal or no deal, I think it's quite obvious that it's preferable to have a deal, although of course we know how the LPUK feels about deals. So the thing is, it's just been disaster after disaster. The US withdrew from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and now it's moving towards China. Trump has floundered geopolitically on the world stage, and as an ally of America, we have suffered for it. And on the topic of Chagos, what I would say is, yes, it's a tricky situation, but if you look into the history of Chagos, frankly, what we did is undefendable.
And there I was trying to avoid Chagos for the entire evening, but there we are. So it is the view of many, not necessarily myself, I am but a humble journalist, that the UK and the US have moved in somewhat lockstep when it comes to foreign policy over the last few years. Is it time for the UK to map out a foreign policy that is independent to that of the United States? And I'm going to throw that question to some British dude because I don't actually know what your views are on foreign policy.
First of all, I agree that the last 4 years of the Trump administration have been absolutely horrific in not just for the United States, but for the United Kingdom and for the world. The change in discourse, especially, has been really as the change in political discourse has really been it's turned politics into something that is really, really toxic. You have to be completely against the other side, even if they are on your side. You have to be against them because they hold the opposite opinion from you.
If I could gently nudge you towards the initial question, though.
Yes, I'm getting back to that. But on his foreign policy, like I said, it's been horrific. But I think with the election of Joe Biden, we can get back to a sense of normalcy, a sense of normality with our relations with the United States. And that's all I've really got to say about that. But I've got one more thing to say. If Donald Trump tries to hold on to power, I believe it is the responsibility of the government of this country, whoever it may be,
to coup him.
To get Donald Trump out of office as quick as possible and allow Joe Biden to take power.
I think the US Secret Service is more than capable of getting rid of trespassers from the White House. That's a very telling point there.
What I'm saying
is, so you're saying that the United Kingdom government should keep military intervention in the United States on the table if Donald Trump doesn't leave office.
I'm saying I'm saying that the government of the United Kingdom should intervene should Trump try and stage a coup d'état, which is looking.
Now, who was it? Who was it? Who I could hear trying to come in on that?
I mean, here I'll just add my few cents to it. I think basically what I was saying is what I think is if you look at the foreign policy challenges we face between us and the United States, it's largely similar. China, Russia, we have the same foreign policy interests with the United States, and we share many of our issues. And there was actually a great article from Cato UK recently calling for more defense cooperation rather than isolationism. For example, I know the Secretary of State for Business, Calvin, recently came out in favor of saying we need to partner less with our allies in making weapons, and we need to make everything right here at home. Well, it's a good sentiment. Personally, we need, if we want to get the best equipment, if we want to have the most effective foreign policy and protect our national security, we need to work together with our allies, because the United Kingdom can't take on China. We can't take on Russia by ourselves. We need our allies.
So
otherwise, our foreign policy is going to fall flat.
So you're saying that we should become more independent in our policy from the European Union, but move more into lockstep with the United States?
And the European Union has frankly held us back in terms of trade, burdensome regulations. I'm talking about foreign policy in relation to.
I know. I'm just teasing you.
Just to take on the point regarding my policy on our manufacture of our own weapon systems and our own materials here at home. Absolutely, I back to the hilt the belief that if there is a British company that is able and capable and reliable enough to produce weapon systems for our British troops here in the UK, we should be taking priority of them over exports. We shouldn't be over imports. Sorry, we shouldn't be importing. We don't need to import weapon systems or armored vehicles or small arms from abroad if we have British companies that are able to produce them here at home. They're going to be better suited to use in the British Army if they are made at home. It is not a case of I don't agree with all form of export. That is absolutely not what is being said. However, what I am saying is that we should aim to build them at home, to build them for home soldiers, and to make sure that we give as much of a leg up to British business, which I thought that the LP UK and the Conservatives would like to support. They would like to see British business being given opportunities over other companies where we may have previously tried to import from. if that is not something that they agree with, if they think we're better off importing from abroad, then that's fine. However, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with them, and I will have to take the side of British industries and British companies.
Going
Okay, I have a
to
hot take. Can I give my take?
sure, you can have a hot take, and then I want to bring
Sure.
in SBD's smouldering take about intervention. But go ahead.
What if instead of using the money we spend on fighting over whether or not we should give foreign countries our weapons procurement or domestic, we could put that money into the housing benefit, increasing NIT, school lunches, poverty alleviation,
We can do
housing
both.
building.
Let's
but
go
the
ahead
we
and
can. We'll have a
abolish
sovereign
item
currency.
2 while we're at it.
problem is
right?
the parties that want to do one often slash the other. So
Fine, let's do both. We have a sovereign currency. We can have as much money as we're willing
but
to
the
pay for
problem
in
is
inflation.
the more money we put, well, actually, that
Vote
is a
for
vote.
liberal
I'll give you that.
Democrats, and we do both.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, this weird flip we've had where like this fantastic amount of doublethink where 6 months ago everyone was screaming about 2% GDP spending. Then when everyone agreed to that, all of a sudden we had to spend an extra $11 billion, pounds, whatever. It's not kidding, more. When we had to spend 11 billion pounds more just out of the blue, just all of a sudden, stupid. I agree with where we were 6 months ago. 2% GDP is enough. Anything else should be spent on welfare programs.
Going to some British dudes take about point that if Donald Trump refuses to leave office, the UK should intervene. Should we intervene in that case? Does anyone have a view on that?
I think it depends on the definition of intervention. If he's suggesting we should be putting boots on the ground in Washington in an attempt to recreate the War of 1812, absolutely not.
We won the last.
If he's suggesting that we should, potentially be looking at sanctions or be looking to support the legitimate US government, I mean, yes, but I think intervention then is the wrong word. Intervention implies
Wait,
far more.
are you saying you would consider sanctioning the United States? But sanctions the United States.
If Donald Trump is refusing to come out of office, then sanctions would have to be put in place until he's taken out of office. Of course, if it looks
you're gonna destroy our
Twisted, you had something to
diplomatic
say,
relations
yes?
and our potential trade with the United States.
Hang on a
I
moment.
don't think
Hang on a
that's
moment.
Hang on, can we bring Twisted in on this, please?
No, this.
Hang on a moment, comma. We can sanction individuals, and we do that very regularly. For example, many members of the Saudi regime come to mind as people who sanction. We can sanction individuals.
I don't know. But
And
if
Trump tries to start any trickery to stay in office after he's been elected out, we can sanction him personally. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think he'll keep up this ridiculous pretense that there's been a mass election fraud when there clearly hasn't. And come January,
we just
So
had Shane Chomsky admit to stuffing ballot boxes for Joe Biden.
And I got MS-13 members.
I believe that's called joking, my
I
dear.
do believe that's called joking. So
Everyone knows
Twisted.
the UK doesn't have humour.
So Twisted, your view is that you doubt intervention will be necessary at all.
No, I mean, frankly, the American Republic has stared down a lot bigger threats to its democracy than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a child, and the sooner he's out, the better. But this has been a 4-year failed experiment, and I hope the world learns that brainless populism doesn't work. Go into government with a plan and try and work with your friends. Don't piss them off.
Shane Chomsky,
On
did
a
you have
serious
something?
note, yes, there's no proof of fraud or anything, and I do agree with Twisted in saying that. Yes, I'm sure we will see Joe Biden inaugurated as he should be on January 20th.
Shane Chomsky, did you have a view on intervention?
Huh? Oh, I mean, I think you can sanction private citizens, and I think we should after Trump leaves office. I hope the United States government prosecutes him for various crimes against humanity. Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, and speaking about
what charges? I'm curious. What charges should we? What charges is he going to be prosecuted on exactly? Crimes against humanity?
Yeah, crimes against humanity. Usually,
that haircut is a crime against humanity in itself.
Yeah, that is a crime against humanity. But usually, the forced internment of large groups of ethnic minorities is usually what I would call the phrase is a no-no.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we can start there.
Willem,
I guess we can also, but we should also prosecute Obama as well. Then
yes.
Can we, Willem?
Yes.
Willem, you do you have a view on sanctions or intervention? Should Donald Trump refuse to leave office?
Yeah, intervention isn't good. in any way, in my opinion. Sanctions, I think, will not work as well. I think that the Electoral College will vote for Joe Biden very soon. He will be inaugurated in January, and as was said, the Secret Service is perfectly capable of removing unwanted persons from the White House. So I think that we should just trust democracy, trust Joe Biden, trust that the outcome will be as has been announced recently, and that we will be stuck with Donald Trump for a little less than 2 months. We'll be fine.
This is a question.
Willem's voice is so soothing. I like it. You should do ASMR.
This question is from a man in the back wearing a bandana and holding a Molotov cocktail, and it's for Calvin Loken.
That's my husband.
man.
And this is
That's my husband.
this is for Calvin Loken. The Labour Party, at one of its more recent conferences, adopted a policy of unilateral nuclear disarmament. This is the conference before the one just gone, I believe. So the view of the Labour Party adopted at that conference was that nuclear weapons are weapons of mass destruction designed for genocide. Now that the Labour Party is in government, is this still the view of the Labour Party?
Well, it's the same conference as the BDS motion.
I think.
There was a typo. It was actually supposed to be a BDSM motion.
If Calvin can answer, please.
Perhaps they need whipping into shape.
I will mute.
They don't have a chief whip at the moment. So maybe they do.
Can Calvin answer, please?
No.
No.
To begin with, I will first of all state that I am a deputy whip in the Labour Party, and second, on the point of what is Labour's policy regarding unilateral disarmament, it is our current position that we need to work constructively with the international community in the aim of bringing around nuclear disarmament across the globe. So we have obviously recently had our conference and motions are being voted on. I am not aware of the results of the motion yet, which is to shift our policy from one of unilateral nuclear disarmament, but to one of retaining our nuclear weapons whilst committing ourselves to negotiating with the international scene in order to aim towards disarming the whole world of nuclear weapons.
So it is no longer
harassment, and I wrote that resolution, and now you're going to do me dirty like that.
So it is no longer the view of the Labour Party that they are weapons of mass destruction designed for genocide. I'm not saying that's my view. I don't have a view. I don't have a view on anything. I'm just a journalist. It's your the Green Party, they would get rid of nuclear weapons.
It's not for me to make Green Party policy. I'm an advisor. But speaking as
you're here on behalf. You're here on behalf of the Green Party.
That's true, but it's not for me to make policies. You've asked me on to give my opinions on matters of the day. Wait until we've finished our manifesto, and our policy will be quite clear. However, in my personal opinion, I think let's ignore the context of unilateral disarmament. Let's just address the first part of the motion that Labour was considering. Weapons of mass destruction designed for genocide. Would anyone actually disagree with the assessment of nuclear weapons as weapons of mass destruction aimed at genocide? Because I think that's rather a fact. I'm not interested in the geopolitics. Just on a pure basis, does anyone disagree morally?
I don't.
Okay, well, there seems to be silence. I understand there's some context behind this, but our goal has to be a nuclear-free world. Now, I think that probably the best way to do that is to hold on to our weapons for the time being and agree a treaty to eliminate them entirely. But if we were to unilaterally disarm, which frankly I'm undecided on whether we should go ahead with, we would still be under the nuclear umbrella of the Americans, who have no particular desire to disarm. As I say, I think if we want a nuclear-free world, that needs to be done via international agreement, and we're probably in a stronger position if we still have our nuclear weapons to do that. But I don't necessarily disagree. I don't necessarily agree with the principle that disarming would make us directly less safe, because we're still in NATO.
So as probably the most pro-nuclear guy, I guess, in the room, let me just say some things. I'm glad to see the Labour Party's policy has shifted from unilateral disarmament because, frankly, it's stupid, okay? Like, the real world,
Ooh.
no one's going to agree to just disarm all their weapons and just go for peace. And frankly, Solidarity's position in their November manifesto, which is calling for the saying that they unilaterally disarm our nuclear weapons,
Uh,
because first off, it's going to destroy over 12,000 jobs, which, as Calvin said, he wants to prioritize British industry on our interests. And second, it puts our national security in danger and leaves the United Kingdom in a frankly less secure position in a dangerous world, especially given the rise of China and we facing threats. And the United States, as everyone was quick to attack the United States before, talking about how they're not a reliable ally somehow, so we can't always rely on the Americans for their nuclear umbrella, especially when we get leaders like Donald Trump who are more unstable.
Liked him.
can you say that again? You cut out for a
I don't think
second.
anybody said that the United States was an unreliable ally, and that would not be the position of anybody here. The question was relating to what is what has Donald Trump's effect been, and should the UK look to pursue a more not independent, purely independent, but a more independent foreign policy? I don't think anybody here said that they were
I mean, you're still dodging the question on nuclear weapons.
I mean, I didn't. I answered the question only a scant, 5 minutes ago. I answered directly what Labour's position was on that there is a motion.
You have to. I mean, you have to admit. So wait. Is currently Labour's position? You guys have dropped that, right?
Well, when you're listening, he just told you.
I do believe that
So
Labour
you
has
agree,
adopted.
so
I
you
do
agree
believe
that
that Labour.
Labour's previous policy was a mistake. Unilateral disarmament is not going to work.
I mean, I'm not going to go as far as to say a mistake because you make policy based on the evidence you have at the time. That would be a completely ludicrous statement for me to make, to look back at a place when I was neither an MP nor a member of the Labour Party nor even a participant in politics at the time, and to go, yeah, they are idiots for making that decision. That would be A, deeply insulting to everyone involved, and B, a completely ludicrous statement for me to make.
Actually, I can confirm that the person who pushed for unilateral disarmament was an idiot, though he was quite handsome.
Some British dude.
Was it you?
Some
Yes.
British dude. The
Yeah, it
Progressive
was.
Party's view on
You are
nuclear.
quite handsome, I'll give you that.
The,
It was
progress-
my motion.
the Progressive Party's view on nuclear weapons.
I can say so far as that we don't really have a view at the moment. But my personal view is that yes, we should be looking to disarm as much as possible, not just in this country, but across the world. Nuclear weapons are, frankly, they are horrific. If you think about them, they are just completely horrific. They are weapons of mass destruction designed to kill as many people in the shortest time as possible, and that is frankly unacceptable. They've always been unacceptable, and I think the idea that anybody would use nuclear weapons at any time, that even just thinking about using nuclear weapons is frankly ludicrous.
We are starting to run out of time now, so I'm going to move on to the final question, which has been submitted by a man in a yellow jumper who looks strangely like the French artist Stromae. On the 10th anniversary of the greatest album of all time, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West, what is the panel's favourite song?
From who?
Monster. Incredible posse cut, and Nicki Minaj's verse was absolutely incredible, especially where she was in her career at the time.
Okay, that's Mr. Chomsky's favourite song. Twisted, what's your favourite song?
I'm trying to suppress the urge to say wet ass pussy. At the minute, I've had a change. At the minute, I would go for the Bring Me the Horizon Baby Metal collab, Kingslayer. I just thought it was the perfect kind of Ollie Sykes gutturals and Psy Metal's kind of higher pitch vocals. It was just a perfect blend. I highly recommend it to anyone who likes metalcore or that sort of genre.
Mr. Loken, your favourite song?
It's a classic from when I was a young wee little lad growing up in Leeds. That would be Mike Posner's "Cooler Than Me," or either that or the Billy Bragg version of "Which Side Are You On?"
Some British Dude, your favourite song?
I prefer not to comment.
It's Things Can Only Get Better, isn't it?
Mostly because I don't have a one favourite song.
Not even Things Can Only Get Better?
How about No Classical Liberals? Do you like that?
I haven't heard that song actually.
Have you not? It's a
I have to
masterpiece, mate.
Three Commas, your favourite song?
Absolutely, Kanye is amazing. My Dark Twisted Fantasy is absolutely my favorite album, but favorite song probably Homecoming, Kanye.
And Willem, your favourite song?
God Save the Queen.
God say. Oh,
I-
very
I wish-
patriotic.
I wish- I
Very
wish to state-
patriotic.
I wish to
We're
state
gonna
for the
have to have
record-
words afterwards,
I
Willem.
wish,
My,
I wish to state for the record, I do not believe Three Commas. I believe his is actually the Star Spangled Banner.
Okay,
What
I may
is
be
the Star Spangled Banner? What is that?
I may be a
America.
journalist with
I hardly know her.
I may be a journalist with no views on anything whatsoever, but I do have a favourite song, and it is "Bridge Over Troubled Water" by Simon and Garfunkel, which is the best song ever written, and anybody else is wrong. So we're going to finish
Fake news.
We're going to finish this edition of Question Time here. Thank you for joining us here from Ipswich. Next week we are going to be in the sunny town of Plymouth, down in Cornwall. So join
Have
us
you
then.
ever been to Plymouth?
I have been to Plymouth. It's lovely.
They're lying.
So we're
What's
going
the
to
Cornwall?
be in Plymouth. We will see you all next week. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Have
Subscribe to my
Felicia.
own